What's happening today, fellas? Hey, listen, let's take a look at this raid pulse rifle, Steel Medulla. It is a legendary pulse rifle, one of which I've been anticipating for quite some time since I knew it wasn't going to be coming into hard mode, and I actually got to play on it this morning and mess around in both PvP and PvE. Now, first and foremost, we're going to go over the PvP aspects of this weapon. Now, this is, of course, a hockey pulse rifle. That's right. So all of your hockey pulse rifles all have that 4 bursts. They're not 3 burst pulse rifles. So things like Apple Discord, you probably have messed around with that weapon before. Same thing, man. Now, of course, this thing comes with a whirlwind curse, giving you that bonus agility when equipped, and also does that bonus damage to fallen enemies. But speaking just about PvP, I pretty much went with 2 different setups. The first setup is kind of like my flinch factor setup. It's the high count rounds to just give me a little bit of extra flinch factor on people, and it essentially put my range at 47 and my stability at 80. Not terrible there, guys. And you know, it comes down to the 4 bursts, and I'm going to get back to that on how I was able to manage it. And now the second loadout, of course, is the stability loadout. Now, after you load it all out, I've had a range of 45, stability there of 96. Now, the big thing with this gun, man, with it being 4 bursts, especially if you mess around with like Apple Discord and everything, you know, this 4 bursts sounds really good because you're like, oh yeah, we're gonna get that extra damage. But as far as just managing the pulse rifle and going into strafe fights, I found this weapon to be a very weak choice in those fights, man. I would have actually preferred this weapon to not be a 4 burst. I would prefer it to just go ahead and rock it out with something like, you know, just a regular 3 burst, not make it a hockey weapon to begin with, and just rock it with just that. But you know, the 4 bursts, I feel like in PvP really hurts it, man. It wasn't doing it wasn't handling its engagements as effectively as I would have liked for it to handle. So I mean, that was the only issue there. You know, the high count rounds, of course, would have been something I would have jumped on immediately. Red Death, you ever see me rock out that weapon, man? Of course, I'm always rocking those high count rounds, man, to help me out in flinching people. But just adding that to it, even dropping stability to 80, that might seem pretty high and seem pretty nice. It still was just having some issues, man, because of that 4th burst just throwing it up just a little more than what it should be thrown in. So I mean, I essentially had to end up rocking out the stability loadout, maxing out my stability as much as possible, but not hurting my range too terribly much. But that's pretty much what I was rocking with the entire time I was in PvP in order to make this weapon manageable with that 4 bursts going on. So let's talk about some PvE aspects of this weapon. So the Sign of 4 is the PvE perk, pretty much. You couldn't really take advantage of it in Crucible. Most times you'll have anyone killed within, you know, 3-4 bursts. You know what I'm saying? I also try to test out a few other things. But first, let's just talk about the damage. So right off the bat, man, on that 4th burst, you're going to actually hit 33% harder. Now, within the size of the clip, since you are using 4 bullets per burst, you can only essentially get 9 shots off. You see where I'm coming from? So you're only going to be able to take advantage of that 33% damage twice in that entire clip. Something to just kind of take note of. Now, as far as swapping between enemies, you know, it says after landing it on target, I was trying to see if I could kind of just mix it up in between different targets. If I land a burst there, land a burst here, or if I land 3 bursts on one guy and then land the 4th on another, could it perhaps, you know, drag the damage over? I did not get any of that. It was very much just based on the one particular target, which tells me this is more or less going to be a boss killing weapon, kind of what it was kind of aiming itself to be. Now, we have a lot of other weapons that are really good for taking down bosses as far as primaries goes. Outbreak Prime is a great weapon, especially for taking out, you know, just damage wise, DPS wise in the rate. And of course, I really love Chaos Dogma as well as being a good scout rifle, especially with that double triple tap. So this is just something that I kind of am scratching my head at with, and I'm also going to be testing out damage tables as far as how this all comes together. I've been testing out Outbreak Prime and how both of these kind of align with one another, and if this is perhaps a better DPS weapon. But I'm going to be honest with you guys, I don't think it is. Not compared to Outbreak Prime is what I'm saying. Those Siva Knights, it's just something that's just absolutely deadly on bosses. So it's not something I would say is an ultimate weapon. So far, fellas, this is just a gun that I find to be very much average across the board in both PvP and PvE. And like I said, I probably would have made this if not a different art type, just not make it hockey. Just, you know, to kind of keep it away from that 4 burst. I'm not a fan of the 4 burst in PvP. And that's kind of what I was hoping this weapon was going to do, was shine in PvP, if at all possible. You know, high count rounds was looking pretty nice on it. Either way it goes, fellas, get this weapon for yourself. Tell me in the comments below if you already got it, what you think about it, how it's been working for you. I'd love to hear you guys' comments on it. All right, fellas, catch y'all later. Slap that like button like your mama told you right.